explore a little more. And today we're going to talk about a topic that has touched many of your lives, and that is cancer. And one of the greatest concerns with cancer comes the fear of losing all of your hair. But Stanley Qu, our guest today, a high schooler, is trying to change that with his new nonprofit, Keep Your Hair campaign. So welcome, Stanley.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for having me on there.
Well, I think this is a tough topic. Obviously, cancer, no one likes to talk about it. It never really comes at a good time. And, everyone, it sort of takes their breath away. But something good can come out of it. And that's like nonprofits like yours, Keep Your Hair. So before we get into your actual nonprofit, can you share just a little bit about how cancer has affected your family?
Cancer has affected my family much like half of America. Cancer has plagued humanity since people have started living longer. I mean, it's just going to get more and more dangerous. But when I was in second grade, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. Luckily, it was an early stage. And unfortunately, it's not the same way for a lot of people in America. But since they caught it in an early stage, my mother did not have to receive chemo. She was just able to get it resected by a quick surgery, and it was a successful one, luckily. And I just remember my mother telling me one day I'd come back from school and I wanted to go talk to her, and I'd asked if she would lose all of her hair from chemo. And I was young at the time. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's 7. Like, you're like 7 in the second grade, I think. 6 or 7.
8. I was 8. And then
you were an old second grader, but 8.
And then she said if it came down to it, she would choose ultimately not to receive chemo, even if it meant saving her life. And that's just, unfortunately, the way it is for a lot of women in America, choosing to decline life-saving treatment to just because of a cosmetic feature. And
well, there's so much that is tied to a lady and their hair, and just, you don't, it's easy to, it's quick, you can quickly go to, oh gosh, why would you ever fear that? It's going to save your life, it'll grow back. But you really don't know how you're going to feel about any of that until you are standing in the shoes of someone who's having to make those decisions, or watching their cells transform, and all the other emotional baggage and things that can just be backing up that decision. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people who have to walk through that or think through that, and it's a real fear that a lot of ladies have, particularly too with other things that come with being able to better your chances for survival with particularly breast cancer, which would be to choose or not to choose to have certain surgeries that change your appearance forever. So I can't imagine you, Stanley, at 8 in the second grade to think, well, I'll start a nonprofit for that, right? So this is obviously this encounter with your mom stuck with you for a really long time. So when did you start to think, or this get brought back up to maybe something that you could find a maybe not a cure for, but find something that could help?
Well, this incident has stayed in my mind, obviously, as you said, since that day. I remember vividly. We were standing in her bathroom. But it came back again about 3 or 4 years ago. It was 3 years ago after my dad came back from work. And my dad is an oncologist, so, none of this would be possible without my dad, obviously, because he's the one that told me about this treatment. But a lot of people don't actually know about it, even though it's been around for over 2 decades, just because of how expensive it normally is. And what my goal is to make it free, basically make hair loss optional for people receiving chemo in Mississippi.
And that's why the name of your nonprofit is Keep Your Hair. But the treatment that you're talking about are cooling caps. So when did you first get introduced to cooling caps?
It was at dinner one day when he came back, and he said that there was a lady that had them, and I immediately had a flashback to that day, that conversation with my mom, and I just asked my dad if we could do something about it, if there was something greater that we could do with hair retention for women receiving chemo.
Well, even if they're not afraid of losing their hair, just the fact that there may be an option to not,
yes,
or to keep it, or to make it come back faster, or whatever it may be, I think is all around a good thing. But absolutely, if you can get a woman to choose treatment with the idea that maybe hair loss, won't happen, and that's her only door through, then, oh my gosh, then that's a life-changing, a life-changing opportunity for her. So how do they work? Because when you say cooling caps, it sounds like a cooling cap. Is it that simple as being just a cap that cools? Or maybe you can tell us a little bit about the magic to it.
Okay, so basically what a cold cap is it's a gel cap that is frozen with dry ice to about negative 30 degrees Celsius, extremely cold. But you just imagine when you walk outside, this is an example of the technology or the mechanism that cold temperature does. When you walk outside and like the tips of your fingers get numb,
mm-hmm.
That's the reason for that is because the cold is constricting the blood vessels in your fingers, and it's just reducing the amount of blood flow to your nerves, which is why you can't really feel your fingers. So when you lower the temperature of your scalp, you're constricting the blood vessels in there, and you're reducing the amount of chemo contact with the hair follicles. So,
so it's like Elsa built a little stop sign there for the chemo to not get to the hair follicles. So then, if it doesn't get there, then it doesn't damage them, and
yes,
they don't fall out.
Exactly.
That is my second grade sort of idea of what's going on with the cold caps. Okay, so do they wear it during their treatment?
Yes, you have to wear it 30 minutes before and the whole way through, and you have to wear it an hour after. The cold caps, since they're cooled by dry ice, they're going to heat up, so you have to change them about every 15 minutes. So it's not an easy task at all to wear these caps, but
I know there's a lot of good research, too, that supports
yes,
that this helps. So I saw Baylor College of Medicine is one place. Where are some other places that are doing clinical trials for these cooling caps?
I think the NIH has a lot of studies on cooling caps, and I know Mayo Clinic also has a few. And Mayo Clinic had a study a few years back stating that the number one reason why women chose not to receive chemo is the fear of hair loss. And I mean, as you said, with hair loss, there's so many other things like lower self-esteem, body image issues, and such, and
just the lack of control, the emotional wound up
mm-hmm.
that comes with it. I mean, who are we to ever judge someone's decision, what they choose in their medical pursuit? And so, if you can offer something like this, like a cooling cap that at least gets that lady through the door, or even one that was willing to go through the door, like I mentioned, but just has that opportunity to hold on to her hair, I think this is cool. But there is some roadblocks to it. One being, obviously, you said it's not easy. It takes a lot of the switching it out, and also the price. So if I am someone who is going into chemo, Stanley, will that place have a cooling cap maybe, or do I have to sort of bring my own at this time, or one or the other, or both?
Currently, there are no organizations that I know of that are supplying caps free of charge. That is my goal, to be supplying those caps free of charge for people in Mississippi, but currently we need fund. We're looking for funding, and we've gotten a few donations recently. So,
how much does a cap cost?
There's actually a little complication right now. Caps. We went to China a few years ago to get them manufactured, but now there's actually a different place that we can get them for cheaper. So we'd have to make a recalculation, and we're actually looking at a total of $10,000. Originally, it would be closer to $80,000 to $100,000 to supply these caps if we had gone to the place in China. But now with this, with a shortcut, I think we can. It can get down to $10,000
per cap.
No, to supply the entire Mississippi.
Whew. oh, okay, you know what? You took it down. You cooled us off a notch. I was thinking, wow, 10,000 a cap. No wonder they're not around. But hey, 10,000 total to help the state of Mississippi. Now we're talking about something that maybe we can actually see a finish line for. And I know you're not going to finish until you have reached your goal. And we're not finished talking to Stanley. We're going to talk more to him about keep the state. But what you can't get anywhere across the state, which our guest here on Good Things is trying to change, is a cap. Cooler cap. What's that? For cancer patients who are trying to help reduce the risk of losing their hair. And our guest with us, Stanley Qu. He is a junior, going to be a senior in high school, and he has started the Keep Your Hair campaign that is, trying to get these cold caps. Cooling came to mind, but it's a cold cap. Stanley, okay, how many cold caps are in the state now because of Keep Your Hair?
There are currently 5 cold caps, which is equal to 1 set. This set has saved 4 patients' hair so far. And
it's not 100%. I mean, you do want to be honest.
Yes,
it is, that's still, it's like it's a treatment on top of a treatment.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
You can't say without a shadow of a doubt, if you use a cold cap, you're not going to lose your hair. Not everyone responds, but there's hope in it because it works for a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. So what we designate as success for hair retention treatment is keeping at least 50% of your hair. Mm-hmm. So 50% is a lot of your hair, but even if you lose all of your hair in this treatment, after when your hair starts growing back, it will grow back faster and stronger than it would have if you did not wear it. So in my book,
that's a win-win.
Just wearing the cap is a success.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it might feel good. I don't know. I know chemo doesn't, so I don't want to take no disrespect from those treatments. I know they can be hell on earth. But if you put something cold on your head when you're going through something like that, it feels like maybe, it could be a little bit, feel a little good during the treatments. Have you gotten any kind of response back from those that have worn the caps?
I have not, but I have actually tried it myself. I didn't have to receive chemo, but I had to test out the cap to see if they would still, had like the Jell-O consistency when they got cold. But it's pretty painful for the first 3 minutes, but then you can't feel it anymore.
Well, that's kind of like you mentioned when the tips of your fingers
Yes.
get cold. That's
Yes.
side of the way that it works. Okay, let's talk about the sets though and why they're so hard to get. Cost is obviously a barrier to this, and I think right now you mentioned at one point that people are having to rent them at like $2,000 a pop or something like that. So where are they renting them from?
So you can rent these from the internet. I mean, there are a lot of companies right now renting them, but they're very expensive.
Yeah.
$500 a month, which if you have 4 treatments in 4 months, then you have to pay $2,000,
Right.
which is out of the budget for so many people.
Oh, for sure. And then you mentioned, I'm trying to get my head around how the cold caps work. When you go in for your treatment, you mentioned there's 5 caps to a set, Stanley. So do you have to have one on, and then obviously anything cold that's going to not be plugged into something keeping it cold gets warm? Do you have to switch those out, kind of like switching out a cold rag when you don't feel good on your
Yes.
forehead?
Yes, every 15 minutes once the cap reheats, you got to switch to another one. And you're going to have a cooler full of dry ice. And
So I can see why this is not just this easy peasy kind of
Yes.
thing for people to be able to add to the other list of things that have to go on for chemo. Okay, so you have 5 or how many sets do you say you have?
well, I have 1 set right now.
You have 1 set right now. Okay, so your mission with Keep Your Hair is to get enough sets that whomever needs them can utilize them. Where would these sets live? Would they live with Keep Your Hair campaign, or would they be donated to oncology departments across the state?
They would be donated to oncology or chemo infusion places all across the state, just for them to divvy out and to be housed at their clinic to be used by patients.
This is pretty cool.
And the only cost for patients would be buying dry ice. And
Oh, that went way down from renting it and then, and then having to do all of that. So let's talk about, how to help get more of them. You mentioned going to China, maybe not the best idea. So where have you all found a better route to get them more economically?
a place on Amazon, actually.
Good old Amazon, which is coming to Mississippi. So maybe they'll stock their warehouse here with these cold caps and make it even easier for us.
Yes. Amazon now has a company selling these. They're not actually for chemo, but they're essentially the exact same as the one that we went to China for. But they're still pretty expensive, and we'd still like to make hair loss optional for women receiving chemo in Mississippi.
So we still need, if you're looking for obviously donations or any type of partnerships with businesses or anything that would like to see, sort of this happen. So where are you set up to sort of, if people want to learn more information about it, can they go?
We don't have a website yet. You can always email me. I have a work email. A keep your hair email. It's called keepyourhair. .com@gmail.com. If y'all want to email me, I can answer questions. And we have a GoFundMe that has sort of a description of what we're doing. And
we can make sure we tweet that out as well. I mentioned too, Stanley, you were going to be a senior in high school. For many of us, we look back. I know if I look back to my senior year, 2002, Terry High, whoop whoop, I was not thinking about nonprofits and helping other people. So even though this connects back to like your personal story with your mom and going through cancer, I mean, who instilled or where did you get this drive to just, not just help, like donate or just think this would be nice, to really, go through those next steps to make a nonprofit legit and to see this sort of idea through? Like, where does that drive come from?
That's kind of a tough question. Honestly, I mean, we're all just products of the environment that we were put in. And I was just so lucky to be put in an environment where all my peers taught me empathy and kindness and hard work, and I think that a lot of that can be attributed to my mother, who, I mean, yeah.
Well, moms can do it. Absolutely. And so obviously, this is a personal connection for you. I can't imagine how proud your dad is too, working in oncology. I just think you need to go on to wherever next, Stanley, and become that person who figures out how to take it from this bulky system and whittle it down to just a good old ball cap or something that you wear and be. I mean, you look back to the VCR was this big bulky thing that everyone needed. It was so expensive, and then over the years the technology improves, but usually it improves because supply and demand. So the more that people demand these cold caps and see the benefits of them, then the more that your engineers and your technology companies and things will try to figure out how to make them better, faster, and cheaper.
Yes,
but right now, we still just need to make them available. And I think even with this conversation, I hope someone today listening to Good Things, number one, learns more about Keep Your Hair campaign with Stanley Qu. But then also, if you or your loved one is going through chemo and, trying to just to figure out, is this an option for you to be able to bring into your treatment? Some people do have the blessings of funds not being an issue. So you may have opened up an opportunity for someone today to at least look for these on Amazon. But you mentioned you don't have a website yet, but you do have the GoFundMe, which we'll make sure we'll sort of tweet out. Is there any social media or something that we can help link to for people to learn more about your story, Stanley?
I have an Instagram right now. It's called Keep Your Hair NPO. NPO stands for nonprofit. And that's pretty much all the social media that we have.
Well, this is new. I think you just you went through all the steps. I mean, it's to get your nonprofit status. Was that a longer journey than you thought it was going to be, Stanley?
Much longer than I thought. It takes a ridiculous amount of time just filling out the paperwork, but also waiting for that letter to come back from the IRS, which takes, believe it or not, like 9 months.
Yeah. Nothing with the government ever takes is quick, faster, in a hurry. And then you had to find board members. So When you went to the people who were sitting on the board for Keep Your Hair, were they all in on this?
Yes, ma'am. Luckily, I've been, as I said, blessed with people in my life that are willing to help. And these people, John Arthur Eves especially, thank you to John. He's been a huge blessing for us.
Well, Stanley, you are welcome back to Good Things to give us a good report when you've reached even a smidget of your goal of getting more of these caps to the women who need it across the state of Mississippi. Again, that is Keep Your Hair, and your email is
keepyourhair.com@gmail.com.
And on Instagram, it is
Keep Your Hair NPO.
All righty, you guys keep with us. We got more for you coming.